And quiet. Roll camera. And action.
With this film, we've got 4 rolls of negative film that was discontinued in 1999, I want to say, that I guess Jason had just sitting in his fridge and he was waiting to make something with it. This is making a movie for the film stock in black and white 16mm, and the fact that it's discontinued means you can't run out to the store and just get more when you run out of rolls. It's made everything like one take.
Cut it.
Because of the type of film that they're using, they have to worry about how much they're using at a certain time or a certain shot. So we time it so they'll know how to calculate how much film is left in the camera so they don't run out on a shot.
For this shot, we only have 5 seconds. How much?
16.
16 seconds?
10 seconds.
That was 10 seconds?
Yeah, 15 seconds.
30 feet. Time-wise? 45 seconds. Can't last longer than 45 seconds.
This is actually my second time shooting a project on film, or working on a project that was being shot on film. The first time was in college. It's very strange how what seemed like the norm then seems really archaic now, and all the things you have to take into consideration that you don't have to deal with video. It forces you to really do your homework and do your pre-production work. You have to plan a lot more thoroughly, and you have to be a lot more disciplined. I think it's good to do this every now and then, because it's easy to get lax a little bit. Oh, we don't need to storyboard it. We can just kind of do it on the fly. Well, you can't do that with film. Every filmmaker should work on film from time to time, and just to kind of remember the nuts and bolts and have to do all of that stuff. Yeah, if you get a chance to work on film, work on film.
I think it's really important to shoot film at least once in your life and really understand film, because I think it lends a greater understanding to shooting digital. Because with digital, there's really no urgency. You can see what you're getting on a screen. If you don't light meter it, it's okay, because you can just fix it by eye. And if you run out of space on the card, you just dump the card and clear it and put it back in the camera. I mean, it's cheap, it's great. I think there are a lot of pros to it, but I think using film, you're watching the counter, you only have a certain amount of feet, it's expensive to buy new rolls, you've got to load new rolls. And if you don't use the light meter right, if you don't set the focus, the aperture right, you may not be able to tell during the take, and then when you go to develop it, you don't have what you wanted. I think it's important to learn to be so meticulous and so clear about what you need, and to really understand an aperture, a light meter, all of that, because it'll come into play later. It'll make you just a better filmmaker, because you'll fully understand the tools that you're working with and how they've evolved into digital.
Action. Cut.
But this is definitely the most unique project I've ever been a part of, especially because it is not digital, and we're really working with the film in a different way than I've ever had to experience. We're really rehearsing the scenes really hard before we film them, which is a very different style from most filming, so I think it's a huge learning process for me. To go through all the different objectives and what is the backstory and all these different things, because we're not just shooting 1,000 takes and choosing which ones we like best. We had to have all that stuff figured out and kind of explore like you would in theater, whereas not necessarily in film or TV you always do. I grew up doing theater and I grew up dancing. I think that is a definite plus. It helped me out a lot, and one of the first things that Jason said to me when we were going through auditions and stuff was that he wanted her to move like this, like a cat, like all these different things to embody physically only and not through any of your speech or vocalization. So it's hard, but I think it's kind of fun. The fight scene. I was definitely nervous. I was actually crazy nervous, and that's why I'm kind of happy it was the first thing that I had to do, because I got it over with real quick. But it was definitely, I was nervous about getting hurt, it not looking right, not looking like it was a real struggle, but it was great. I had a great person to work with who did not hurt me at all, and it ended up being definitely easier than I thought it might be, so I was happy. And I don't have one scratch on me, so I can't complain.
most of the American work that I've done, it's just personality work, what I am at the moment. And not only the best auditions are the ones that I get the sides an hour before I actually do it. I do the best work in it because it's like completely without any gate, without any judgment, without any second guessing. I just go ahead and do it. Now, to translate to the actual performance, of course there's some thinking about it, but the least amount of thinking I can do for myself, the better, and the more instinctual. I think some of the most powerful performances, not only I've done, and also some of the other people that I've seen, there is no dialogue. It's an inner life. The director explains to you exactly what's going on in the scene. You know who you're talking to, and if you allow that to just happen inside, it's kind of like called the inner monologue, but I think that's kind of a fancy name for what we do anyway. There's something ineffable, something tangible about a person's spirit that comes out if you leave yourself alone. If you start thinking about it, you screwed it up. Well, I'm always excited about working with people that really know what they're doing and have a great deal of passion. Jason has a great deal of passion in what he's doing, and he assembled a wonderful bunch of people. And everybody seemed to be working at the top of their game, and sometimes you don't get that. And even though this is a short production, everybody was focused and doing their best job. Now, I could feel that as an actor, so you get a great deal of support from people like that. That can be quite different when you're working with a crew that really doesn't give a damn, or they're not right for the production. These people were ready, so it was a real joy. So it always goes quicker than you want, but that's always the nature of something that you really love doing. It happens in a flash.
So one of the big challenges of working on The Last Hit was the fact that we were using a non-sync sound camera. What that means is that no dialogue could be recorded while the camera was rolling. So everything had to be done as voiceover, sound effects, Foley, or music. So basically we'd have to shoot each take, then go back and capture the sound. Like for instance with the shot where the door is opening. We filmed that first, then went back and recorded the audio of the door unlocking and the door swinging open, and then synced it up after the fact in post. It's all there.
We're sitting and winning.
Times change. Now there is one section in the film where we do have a voiceover, and one of the things we did for that in order to save time, because we only had Daniel Berkey, our actor, for 2 days, is we actually recorded that voiceover on set. It's a telephone conversation between basically the killer and his handler. The voice of the handler is me. One of the things I did in post was I took that recording of that voiceover and ran it through a telephone filter to make it sound like we were talking over the phone. That's how we achieved that effect. Obviously, as you know, there's a ton of music in The Last Hit, but there is one section where there's no music. And what we basically had to do for that was we had to bring Molly in after the fact in post and do ADR. And because we didn't have Dan, I basically did the ADR for Dan's voice. All of that breathing and grunting and stuff is me, actually. Some of the Foley I did was when Molly drops the gun. After she shoots Dan in the shot where she's kneeling on the bed holding the gun, and then she finally, looks down and realizes what's in her hand and she drops the gun. I took my grandfather's old .22 revolver and dropped it on a chair. When Dan is shot and he falls down and, pulls his gloves off, that sound of him pulling the gloves off is actually me taking off a pair of gloves here in the studio. As close as you can get to the actual sound, to me that's the way to go with Foley, because you get the most authentic sound from that. For The Last Hit, we knew that there was going to be a lot of music. Because there's so little dialogue, everything else, the entire rest of the story kind of had to be told with music. One of the things that I did to sort of prepare and I guess gather some inspiration, I remember I watched Double Indemnity several times. I went back and looked at the artist. That film is entirely music. There's no dialogue. And lots of Bernard Herrmann. It needed that traditional classic type of score. For this 4-minute film, I believe I wrote about 45 minutes of music total. The important thing to remember is that, you know, it's not really your composition, it's the director's film. And everything you do has to, you know, serve what's important in the film and what the film is trying to say. So you have to let go of, oh, you know, I just think this musical idea is great. It might be great, but it doesn't work with what you're doing on screen. You have to always be mindful of that and be willing to revise and make changes and all of that stuff. And it can be time consuming, but when it's also really rewarding. You know, ultimately you take all of these different elements. You take the sound, voiceovers, sound effects, the music, and you put it all together, and it's, you know, it is the other half of the film.
And action! Got it. So, like, you've had it here, pick it up, go shoot him again, and then it's like, get out of my hand.